Have you been okay with like the natural route being slower and we don't build as much muscle as quickly, at least as the enhanced guys?
I want to put in that effort as a natural athlete and take my body as far as I can.
Was there anything about that first prep that really surprised you?
I've never seen myself that lean. It was actually crazy to see what's achievable through a caloric deficit and steps.
I asked you what was really driving you. Is it kind of the same deal this time around? Second prep, you're really motivated.
Yes, so this time it's a combination of that and the love and addiction for the sport. But also I know what I'm capable of now, and I'm coming like this year with a vengeance.
What's going on, everyone? Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Tyler Bombenon. He's an incredible natural bodybuilder who's packed on tons of muscle over the years and who is currently prepping for his 2025 natural bodybuilding competition season. In this episode, Tyler shares when and why he first started lifting weights. We have a very interesting conversation about natural bodybuilding versus enhanced bodybuilding. Tyler shared about his first competition season back in 2023, how he did and what the experience was like. And of course, he shares all about how his current prep is going now in 2025. Tyler is full of helpful and relatable insights around lifting weights, fitness, and natural bodybuilding. Plus, when you hear about the drive that's fueling his natural bodybuilding journey, I think you're going to have no choice but to feel inspired. I know you're going to absolutely love this episode, so without further ado, let's get into it. All right, Tyler. So you're prepping right now.
Yes,
How are you
sir.
feeling?
Feeling great right now, to be honest. This prep has been a while. I started back in November, dieting on a caloric deficit, but to be honest, this is to date the easiest prep I've done. And when I say easy, I mean it's been really smooth, no issues at all. Energy's been there, everything has been good, no complaints.
That's a decent sized prep too. So it's May at the time of recording this. So you started November, December, January, February, March, April, May. So you're already 6 months in.
I am, yeah. And it'll be, by the time it wraps up, it will have been my longest prep to date, which will be about 12 months. So a full year.
Full year of dieting. Geez.
Yeah, full year.
Well, I want to ask you a series of questions about how your current prep is going. But
For sure.
before we continue, I'd love to rewind and start from and learn a little bit more about how you initially got into lifting weights. So, how old were you when you first got your your very first gym membership, or when you first started lifting weights?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually like to talk about this quite a bit when people ask because they don't really expect the answer I give. So I got in, fortunately, really early to the gym, and it was because of both of my parents. My parents actually met in a gym, believe it or not. So both my parents were avid gym goers. Neither of them were bodybuilders, but just, active and upkept with their fitness, you could say. So they met at the gym. And I first went when I was 14 years old. So my dad at the time had a personal trainer, and he took me as a young 14-year-old kid to the gym with him. And I did a workout with him and his personal trainer. And I vividly remember this because, as a young kid, you want to impress your parents, and especially at that age, you want to show up and do what you can. So I don't know if I was just trying to push myself as hard as possible or just impress my dad, but I ended up actually throwing up everywhere after the workout. So it was a good one.
Nothing leaves a good first impression like training so hard that you make yourself sick.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's actually a funny story, but yeah, a long time ago. So I'm 31 now. So what is that? 17 years of training. Now, not all 17 of those years have been 100% full time in the gym. Obviously, I've had some years in previous relationships that weren't the best, where I, got taken away from the gym, not in the way I wanted to, and got to an unhealthy standpoint, put on some fat, some weight, and then probably about a year at a time, a couple of years in there were some periods of time where I got away from the gym, but for the most part, consistent with it since 14 years old. Yeah.
And after that first training session, when you trained so hard that you made yourself sick, what made you decide to keep going back? Like, I feel like a lot of people, they would have that experience and then they would say like, "Hey, this isn't for me." What was it that made you decide like to keep going?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess it was a good opportunity because it was extremely motivating seeing not only my dad, training himself, but also having the personal trainer there to kind of show me the ropes as a first time. I guess I would say majority of people who go to the gym for the first time, they kind of just go in themselves and learn what's going on and just dive into the deep end. They have some maybe some video feedback or whatever. They've done some research, but typically, I guess they just go in and start. So for me, it was kind of unique and good that we had the personal trainer. I had my dad who knew what he was doing. I got really good educational information on the session itself. And yeah, while I did push myself to the point of getting sick, it was something about I just you could say I fell in love with it from the beginning. Like the endorphins were going crazy, everything was going crazy. It was great training with my dad and the personal trainer, like I said, but it was just a unique experience for the first time.
Did you see progress relatively early on, or was it kind of slow going?
So that's a good question because while I like to think I have good long-term memory, I can't really remember how much size I packed on in my newbie stage, you could say. Um, I don't think I was training specifically for any goal either at that time because I was so young. So it's not like I was immediately doing hypertrophy training, trying to get as massive as possible, nor was I doing strength training, just trying to get strong in certain lifts or anything like that. That kind of came with the lifting education as I got older. So I think it was more just, staying active, the idea of keeping in shape, being lean, being athletic somewhat, um, which sort of transitioned really well into me going into high school and then playing football. And then so it was more of an athletic style training.
Got it. What do you think were the main reasons that I think you mentioned that it was almost like you kind of really enjoyed it right away. You loved it right away. Was it
Mhm.
mostly, I know you mentioned that it was nice being there with your dad and having the personal trainer with you guys, and also like the feeling of endorphins being active. So endorphin release. And also you mentioned you're an athlete too. So football. So was it that combination of different variables that led you to really like training, or what do you think was really behind that?
Yeah, no, I would say it was a combination of things. I mean, like I said, just from a first sort of experience in the gym, the whole environment was great. So not only did I have like a really good gym with good equipment, it was a gym that my dad had at his business, so he put it together nicely. A lot of great equipment. Him and the personal trainer were there, and just I guess the environment and the vibes were just really good. A very good first experience and first impression for me. We had the music playing out loud. It's not like it was playing some average gym generic music, so we had the good tunes going, we had the motivation, the energy was there, not only from him but the trainer, so naturally myself as well. And then yeah, the session, I couldn't even tell you what we hit, to be honest. I don't remember, but overall it was just a good experience, and I was like, wow, this is cool. you know it's
Yeah,
fun.
that's awesome. That's cool that it seems like you really enjoyed the act of lifting weights itself, and it wasn't even like you mentioned, you can't even remember the kind of progress that you made initially as far as like muscle
Yeah.
growth goes, or even what kind of workouts you did. And particular. It was really like the act of lifting weights that it sounds like you liked, which is really cool.
Yeah.
How how from the point you started, so you're 14 years old, did you lift consistently up to a certain point? I know you mentioned that there were some years where you fell off a little bit. How long
Yeah.
was it before you kind of fell off?
Yeah. So I lifted. So from that first day at 14 years old, I was playing community football at the time. So I guess that was another, I guess, point that I could make that kept me lifting and sort of the love for lifting was obviously that idea to, stay active, stay healthy, stay fit. And naturally going to the gym is like one of the best ways to do that. So yeah, from 14 up until graduation, I was 18 years old, lifting consistently. So all throughout community football, probably not like a super dedicated 5 days, 6 days a week in the gym, but maybe like here and there I was going 3 or 4 times. Can't really remember that well, but playing football 5 days a week, or sorry, practicing, I should say, 5 days a week in community, and then lifting here and there throughout that, probably the 3 days, 3 to 4 days a week. All throughout till when I got to high school, then I transitioned to high school football. And then that became more serious because in high school on a Div 1 football team, it's pretty cutthroat, pretty serious. So that became 3 to 4 weeks in the gym, or sorry, 3 to 4 days in the gym, all of a sudden to 5 days in the gym, plus potential extra sessions in there with classes I had like sports performance and stuff. So for high school football, we had mandatory 5 days a week morning gym sessions. So I was training Monday through Friday before practice. Practice was typically after school. This was a 6 a.m. workout. So we would show up, 6 a.m. workout, go do our school, and then practice football after school was done. Now I had sports performance in there too, which was my class was actively working out in sports performance. So I would say 6 to 7 workouts a week potentially, not including football practice. So it got really serious when I turned 16 and I went into high school. And then that continued all the way till I graduated, like I said, 18. And then that's kind of when it I guess slipped up a bit. After high school, I stopped playing football, but I was still active in the gym consistently because by that time I really enjoyed lifting weights. So probably continuing 5 days a week, 18 until 20 years old. And then 20 years old, I started working some jobs, in the restaurant industry, started doing the whole, drinking and doing that stuff that I no longer really agree with. Um, but I went through the phase and lifting here and there. And then I probably fell off the wagon, I would say around 21. For almost a good year, I was, completely inactive and out of the gym. And I was in a bad relationship at the time. So that could have, played a factor, but completely fell off the wagon. Yeah, I would say probably around 20, 21 years of age for about a year. And then got back into it after that.
What do you think it was that got you back into it? It sounds like prior to kind of falling off, like the football really, it was kind of connected to lifting, or maybe largely connected to the lifting. So
Mm-hmm.
after that certain point, like it left, and then you fell off when you're 21, but you got back on. So football's still not, or isn't in the picture anymore. So, or I assume it's not. You can correct me if I'm wrong on
No,
that.
it's not. I stopped completely after high school. So at 18, football stopped.
Okay. So what was it? What was it that got you back into it, considering like football wasn't back in the picture and um, you just kind of got into it again?
So to be honest, I think it was a bit of like self-reflection and honestly just not being happy with how I looked. I put on some significant fat, like no muscle. So the muscle that I did have, from all those years of football and training and stuff, it sort of cannibalized a bit and like I lost a good amount of it and I just put on fat because I was doing unhealthy habits, eating out, eating unhealthy foods, not hitting protein. At that time, I didn't even really understand protein targets and goals. So not consuming enough protein, eating garbage foods, potentially having alcohol in there. So it got to a point where I was just like, I would wake up and look in the mirror and be like, holy, what happened? Like, I used to be a Div 1 athlete who was in the gym so much throughout the week, like, and now I look like a bag of milk. It's like, it's not ideal. So I think, to be honest, it just got to the point where I got fed up with how I looked. I really wasn't happy with how I looked at all in the mirror. So I just basically said, enough is enough. And then I immediately got back on. And it's funny because I didn't actually lose all the weight that I had put on from. I didn't get back into the gym immediately and start cranking the weights. I actually did some cycling classes. So I got into a little bit of a phase where I was doing crazy cardio for a while, and I was doing like 5 or 6 cycling classes a week. And then I started to, learn more about diet and nutrition. So I put myself in a caloric deficit, and then I was doing all this cardio. So all of a sudden my weight changed like dramatically in the shortest period of time I've ever seen it change, which was probably about 3 months. And I would say I lost like 30 pounds of fat.
Wow.
Just being in that huge energy deficit.
Yeah, that's no small amount of weight in 3 months, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was a lot because not only, like I said, I was in a caloric deficit, which I actively knew, but I didn't really understand that I was also burning so many calories on top of that.
Yeah.
So the energy expenditure was just quite a bit.
It's funny. I've got kind of a similar story. When I was in when I was in college, I went to college for classical music,
Nice.
and in my 3rd year, my music teacher at the time, my private music teacher, he thought that the weightlifting that I was doing, because I was building a significant amount of muscle, and I was probably around 21 or 22. I think I was 21 at the time.
Right.
And my music teacher thought it was negatively impacting the way that I was playing the instrument, because it was
No
like
way.
making me like muscle bound and affecting my breathing. So he's like, well, do you want to be a musician or do you want to build muscle? And at the time,
Wow.
honestly, in the back of my head, I was like, I want to build muscle, but I was like, I'm in music school. So
Yeah,
I guess
yeah, yeah.
I'll say music school. So anyways, he's like, well, you should cut out lifting weights. And in retrospect, I think he was totally wrong on that. I mean, he was doing the best he could to help me, but I think he was totally wrong on that. It wasn't based on any
For
real
sure.
scientific evidence. But anyways, I stopped lifting weights altogether. But what I
No
did
way.
was kind of similar to you. And I didn't really understand the whole nutrition calorie deficit terribly well just yet. I just like lifted weights and ate lots of protein up to that point. It was
Mhm.
like lift weights good, protein good. That was the
There you
extent
go.
of my knowledge.
You were ahead
But
of me at that time.
yeah, I got some of the building blocks in place. But
Right.
anyways, I went from training 5 or 6 days a week to not doing any weight training
Hmm.
and then just doing a ton of cardios. I was like, well, he didn't say anything about it, not exercising, period. So I just
So
started
cardio,
doing
yeah.
tons of cardio. And it was the same thing with me, but it was like, and I didn't gain a lot of body fat, but my weight went down like 30 pounds,
Mm.
but it was like muscle. It was like the
Yeah,
muscle was gone. So like it was, what do you call it? Atrophy basically.
yeah.
And I injured myself like right away from going for like an hour and a half run, and my body just wasn't used to it like the day after he suggested that. But anyways, I can kind of relate. You mentioned that you went and did all that cardio from your end. You lost about 30 pounds. I think I lost around the same amount of weight, so we kind of have that in common.
That's
But
wild. It's a very similar story, yeah.
yeah, but it's I think a lot of people can resonate what you mentioned, like getting to a place after a point where exercise is no longer in the picture. I think this happens to a lot of people in their early 20s. All of a
Yeah,
sudden they fall off and gain weight back. They don't feel so hot. And I think a lot of people struggle to get back on altogether. So it's
right.
awesome. It's awesome that you did.
Yeah, I was glad to sort of come back to the roots, but
When did you when did you start thinking about bodybuilding, like really getting serious about building muscle?
yeah, so that would have been soon after that period of time where I came back and I wasn't doing necessarily the weight training in the gym. I was going through that cardiovascular phase, and I probably had an unreal VO2 max at the time. But aside from that, yeah, I wasn't building any muscle. So it transitioned quickly after that. Actually, I had lost all my fat. I was very skinny. So I was at like another weird crossroads with myself where I was like, okay, I look better than what I did, but I'm still not happy with how I look because I'm just like feeble, essentially. I was looking skinny now with no muscle to show for it. So I had lost all that muscle I previously put on over the training through football. So that's when I turned seriously into, hypertrophy training and bodybuilding style. And I always loved bodybuilding from a young age, partially because of my dad, even though he wasn't a bodybuilder or anything like that. Um, we used to watch Arnold and all this stuff together, like the classic story. And I used to keep up with Ronnie Coleman and everything like that. So I would say at that time that light bulb kind of went on after I had lost all my weight. And it's like, okay, I'm at like a good, um, I don't know, baseline to start packing on muscle because I sort of recomped my whole body. I don't have much fat now. So why not build up and put on a significant amount of muscle? And muscle memory is a beautiful thing. So it kicked in pretty significantly from back in the days when I was training avidly throughout high school with the football training and everything like that. So I would say the muscle came back at a somewhat decent pace after that period of time where I lost all the fat. And then since then, what age was that? I don't know. I want to say like 23, 24 is when I seriously got into, okay, I want to be a bodybuilder. I love bodybuilding. I want to train hypertrophy exclusively. I want to gain mass, but I still want to look good and stay lean. So yeah, I would say around that time.
When you started to really dig into it, what was it that kept you driven from that point onwards to continue making like serious muscle growth progress?
I would say just being happy with how I was looking and seeing the progress firsthand. Definitely, it's very rewarding. Um, you have to stay consistent with it. A lot of people, they'll quit before they see the progress, which is it's tough. It's a long game, right? It's the marathon, not the sprint. So I think lucky for me was that the muscle memory was helping bringing the muscle mass back at a significant enough rate where I was happy with the progress I was seeing. I was like, whoa, I'm noticing arm gains. I'm noticing my legs are looking really good. And from all those cycling classes, I caught a decent foundation on my quads. So they had something to go off of. And yeah, I would just say seeing the progress, month over month in the mirror, essentially, and taking those photos. That was a huge thing for me. I loved taking the photos because it's great that you can look back and see how far you've come. So for anybody doing it, I would say, yeah, take those photos throughout the whole process. It's like you won't realize until you look back years later and you're like, whoa, this is where I started. So
Did you find that you became more motivated like the further you got because of the results that you were seeing?
yes, I would say so. And then it's actually funny you mentioned that because I had a sort of a mental shift almost. So I was really enjoying the training and the progress that I was seeing and everything like that. I've always loved the training, like I said, from back to that 14-year-old kid, and then falling in love with the training again after having fallen out of it for that year or so. So refalling in love, and then just seeing the progress. But then I got to a point, like I said, where I had that mental shift, and then I just almost went to the gym because mentally for me, it started to be like, and it sounds so cliche, but it was like a form of therapy. Like seriously, I never would enter the gym and leave in a worse mood than I entered. So, having a bad day or feeling stressed or feeling, down or unmotivated, go to the gym, leave, holy, my day turned around. Like I feel great. So it was a unique shift. I would say like the progress was great. I was loving it, so I was keeping up with that. And then I just got to a point where I'm like, wow, the gym is like my savior. Like it just it is what it is. It just makes me feel so much better. And that's what kept me in the gym consistently ever since.
That really, really resonates with me. I'm the exact same way. And
Yeah,
you articulated that pretty much exactly how I feel it, that the gym is like, it's like
perfect.
therapy.
It is,
I
yeah,
think
literally.
in a way, I've always thought that like for myself, I'm almost lucky that in that sense, it's like, because a lot of people, they're different, right? It's like, and I think it's almost like a gift that we have this drive to go to the gym and experience that, because a lot of people aren't like that. It's like it's hard to get into the gym and it's hard to stay
Oh
in the
yeah.
gym because it's uncomfortable and because it's really challenging.
Hmm.
But there's something about it that I think that you articulated really well. It's like you go, you do the workout, and then you leave, and it's like you never regret having done it. You always feel better afterwards. So it's like
Yeah.
I almost wish that more people could experience that. Plus, then you get to see the progress in the mirror after weeks and months and years of staying consistent.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I definitely resonate with that too.
Yeah, I'm glad you
And
feel the same way because like you said, it's like, you have different reasons for going, but I think for you and myself obviously was, seeing the progress, but then having that shift to just the overall feeling and the the therapeutic almost relief of just training.
definitely, it's like a it's like a stress outlet too. I mean,
Mhm.
from my perspective, you probably feel the
Fully
same
agree.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like um, I kind of plan my training session right in the middle of the day. I'm really fortunate to have a work schedule that I can be completely flexible with. I can be in charge of my work hours.
I'm
So I
the
put
same.
my Nice, nice. Yeah, it's I don't know about you, but I put my training session right in the middle of the day because it's like I have my first big work block in the morning when my brain is like I can tackle all the most mentally taxing activities in the morning,
Mhm.
go do my training session, have my lunch right in the middle of the day, have a little bit of mental stress relief, enjoy the workout, and then get back to work for the rest of the day. I really, really love that. What time of day do you typically train?
So my sweet spot has always been between 1 and 2 p.m. for the last like 5 years. I've experimented, played around with it. I've gone some mornings as early as 6 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., but
Tried it all.
what you've tried it all. But what always works for me best is, like you said, that middle of the day is just like the ideal time to train, in my opinion, for myself at least. And yeah.
I hear you. When was it that you got the bug in your head about competing?
Yeah, so that's another great question. It was actually just before COVID hit. So 2019, 20, yeah, I would say around 2019. I don't think it was as early as 2018. I was always like, oh, I'm a bodybuilder when I wasn't actually a bodybuilder. Like I hadn't stepped on stage yet, but I liked to call myself a bodybuilder because I was going through the training and doing the motions of bodybuilding and playing around with some posing. I didn't really know what I was doing, but just having fun with it and training like a bodybuilder and looking up to those guys and doing the posing and stuff. But yeah, not until I would say, yeah, 2019. And then I got serious about like, okay, I'm at a good point where I'm happy with the physique I have. I've been training for a long enough period of time in a bodybuilding hypertrophy manner. I know my diet and nutrition and what needs I need. The only thing I really didn't know how to do was prep essentially and get down to that level of conditioning or get stage ready or anything like that. Um, so 2019, I was like, you know what? I want to compete. I do want to step on stage. And then COVID hit. And I was like, well, I can't do it now. And nor do I want to do it, even if it was allowed, because my family members and my support system couldn't be there. Like, as much as it's a sport for you, it's also a spectator sport. And you want to have your support system there to cheer you on. So I was like, because I think there was a period of time during COVID where it sort of loosened up a bit, and they had a couple shows, but they had the spectating restrictions or whatever it may have been. So I was like, I'm just not going to do it now. I'll just wait. So yeah.
Something I'm curious about, this is a little bit of a digression, but by the time we got to this point, so you're thinking about this around COVID, so 2020-ish, 2019, 2020, 2021, around that area.
Yeah.
You'd been lifting for around 10 years by that point? A little bit more? Does that sound right? A little bit less?
Um,
Something like that. Around 10 years.
yeah, I would say, yeah, 10, 11 years around that time, I believe. Yeah.
So, what was it that made you decide? Because we're talking about natural bodybuilding.
Yeah.
What was it that made you decide? You'd been lifting for around 10 years by that point, and there was that one, or that at least that 1 year that was kind of an offshoot year, but you'd been lifting for around 10 years by that point. A lot of people would get to that point or even earlier and decide to go down like the enhanced route. Like,
Mm.
I'm done with my natural gains. I've been in it for 10 years and sometimes less. I've milked it for all it's worth. Now I'm going to go down the other avenue. So I'm curious, what was it that drove you to stay in the non-enhanced, in the natural bodybuilding world, and to pursue that instead of going the other direction?
Yeah. Another great question. There's a lot of them today. I would say, to be honest, so I was very fortunate in the sense that I never had that experimental stage. So I was exposed to them early on, obviously in football in high school. There was a ton of players on my team who were dabbling in the anabolics and PED route as early as 18. And I just never felt the need or wanted to do that or anything like that. I didn't understand it. I didn't want to get into it. So fast forward to that time that I was ready to compete, I think what really kept me away from it, to be honest, was once again my family and friends. Like both of my parents were like, they would respect my choice regardless, and they would support me regardless. But they kind of influenced me in a way like, you don't need that. Like, look at us. My dad is 67 this year, and people mistake him all the time for being 50 years old because he's always kept up with his fitness, his health, and he's still in the gym today. Like we go hit gym sessions all the time. So I think my parents, once again, very grateful for them. They kind of said like, why do you need that? You look great. You're doing great. Why not just stay natural and continue down the path that you're going on? So that was a big sort of motivation. And then I guess like also my understanding on the topic before I dabble in anything, whether that's hobbies or anything like that, I like to have a good amount of information and understanding on what I'm getting into. And I hadn't put any time or effort into understanding PEDs or anything like that. So I felt like I wasn't at a place to just start that. Um, and then, yeah, like I said, I was happy with how I looked as a natural athlete, and I just kind of I explored the options of competing naturally, and then I found WMBF, and then I was like, you know what, this is a great option. Like, why don't I just see how far I can take this?
Totally. I love it. Sometimes I've heard the question asked from people that are genuinely interested in this topic. They think like, because we're natural lifters, progress comes like relatively slow as we become more advanced. It's just the
Mhm.
nature of muscle growth. Like
Yeah,
maybe we'll only build 1 or 2 pounds or less per year after a certain point.
for sure.
And I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of genuine curiosity as to like, well, isn't that too slow? Like, wouldn't you want to go faster? So, w- and I think a lot of people, there's a misconception that it's almost like you can't make progress after a certain point too. Like if you're not making at least 1 or 2 pounds, it's
Yeah.
almost like you're making no progress.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think you and I have both seen, and even for you, I'm going to ask you more questions about like your first prep, your off season, and then your current prep. I think this is you're on your second prep right now, or is it your third?
On my second prep currently, yeah.
Right. I think a lot of people have a misconception though that you just kind of stop building muscle, or it's just so slow. It's like, why even bother lifting weights at that point? Has
Mhm.
that ever bothered you? Have you been okay with like the natural route being just it's slower and we don't build as much muscle as quickly, at least as the enhanced guys?
Yeah, so I actually love this topic because as I've gotten older, I am very opinionated on the topic of uh, like PED usage, being a natural athlete, and by no means am I opposed to PED usage or testosterone therapy or whatever it may be. Like that's in our bodies. So let me preface by saying I'm not opposed to that at all. But I think the issue in today's day and age is just the instant gratification that comes through a lot of other aspects of life, like with social media and TikTok and 30-second videos and instant gratification and dopamine hits and everything like that. There's not a lot of patience anymore, even in younger athletes and stuff like that. So people tend to want the quickest shortcut or the get rich quick scheme or whatever it may be, especially in terms of bodybuilding. So that would be, how can I get big muscle and look like sebum? Well, that's hop on gear as soon as possible. And that's going to get me there. When in reality, like if it was up to me, um, like I said, I'm very opinionated on this topic. There would be like a long, long laundry list of things that you need to check off before you ever consider hopping on PEDs or gear. Like I feel like so many people take the shortcut when they have no understanding of training, progressive overload, sleep, nutrition, macronutrients, recovery, proper splits, so on and so forth. Like there's so much that people don't understand before they just do the quick thing to get where they want, right? So for me, I don't know if I find um, like peace in the long route, or I just thrive off of being more disciplined, or maybe it's just a personal goal, but I want to put in that effort as a natural athlete and take my body as far as I can to when I feel ready to then maybe make that transition to TRT or PEDs or anything like that. But no, to answer your question in a long-winded way, I'm not unhappy with putting on 1 to 2 pounds of muscle a year. And I would say in my case, more closer to the 1 pound mark. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I said that earlier. Like it just, you want to see the fruits of your labor and your hard work. I don't need to see it tomorrow. Like I understand, and maybe that's because I've been in it for so long. I understand that it's a long game as a natural. Um, but yeah, I don't need that instant gratification. I'm just happy to be disciplined and see the small wins and the small progress compound over time.
To be honest, I completely am on the same page as you, and I think that you articulated those each of those points really, really well. I think something for me too, just that I'm thinking as you're talking about this, is just this prospect of gaining 1 pound or 2 pounds per year too. It's like if if we change our perspective on that, like 1 pound can be like awesome, right? Like it depends on how you look at it.
Oh, totally. 1 pound in
Like
muscle is, I bet you if you showed people like, before and after photos of even myself as an example, or just like an example of what 1 pound of muscle looks like, they would be like, whoa, that's crazy. Like it's more than it seems, you know?
yeah, you think of like what would a pound be? Is that like 500 grams ish, 400 grams, like a 400 gram steak? Like that is a whopping
Something
steak,
like that. That's a
right?
lot
To imagine that
of
would
lean
sit across
tissue.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a pound is a big deal, and it makes a big difference on how you can look. So I think
For sure.
if more people had that perspective, it wouldn't seem as unimpressive as it actually is. I think it really is impressive. My
Mhm.
hope too is that more people will eventually be exposed to like more people like you who are taking their physique naturally to its potential
I hope
and
so.
getting an understanding of like they look at Tyler competing 2025 his stage physique and they're like, holy crap, I didn't know that we could do that naturally. That's my hope.
Mhm.
Is I think it'd be really cool if more people are exposed to that. I think at the
Yeah.
end of the day too, like a natural physique, like a really well developed natural physique is like what most people really want anyways. Like
Yeah.
that's my theory. They just
Of course,
um
because you get almost the pinnacle of what you're looking for without having all of the added complications of, having to exogenously balance your hormones. Which who wouldn't want that, right? Like you look incredible. You look like you're potentially on gear and you're not. Which is funny because I've been accused of being on gear quite a bit actually on social media. I'm sure you have too. So a lot of people are just, I would say, like ignorant to the fact of what is actually achievable naturally and what can be done. Even myself, when I went to WMBF World Championships for the first time, and I got to see the best natural athletes in the world. Mind you, you got to remember this is out of millions and billions of people who have decided to pursue bodybuilding at the highest level as a natural. I was shocked. I was like, "There's no way! Like, are these guys actually not? Like, this is incredible! Like, what?" I was mind blown. I was like, "This is what a physique like. If you have what it takes and you're putting in the effort, obviously genetics plays somewhat of a part, but if you know what you're doing, you put the time and effort in. It's like, whoa!
yeah.
Like, this is insane."
Yeah, it's a lot of people almost don't believe it. I think
Yeah,
it's like a limiting belief
for
kind of a
sure.
thing.
Yeah,
But who knows? Maybe the more natural bodybuilding grows in popularity, the more it could open up people's belief systems as to like what they can accomplish naturally, and maybe that is encouraging for them to continue on that route.
I hope so. Because, like I said, I'm not opposed to PEDs at all. Like, I've considered even down the road in my life potentially doing that route. But, like, I feel as though natural bodybuilding is such a fraction of the sport itself. It's like a minimal part. It would be cool to see almost an equal balance of your enhanced athletes and your natural athletes, and people can get more of an understanding of what's achievable naturally as opposed to just being like, whoa, this guy looks insane, gear. This guy looks better than me, gear. Like, I feel like that's the mindset these days, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
definitely. Okay, so your first prep, how did it go? What was the experience like?
first prep was good. It was stressful. Doing anything for the first time, you're stressed out, depending on what it is. I was a bit stressed. There was a lot to learn, a lot of mistakes and trials and tribulations, I guess. Um, but overall, it was rewarding. At the end of the season, once again, I was extremely happy with my physique and my placings, and I was like, this was awesome. And then naturally being on stage, I fell in love with true bodybuilding because that was the first time I actually experienced it. So I was like, yeah, I love this. It's like not only we talked about the gym is our therapy, so I get to go to the gym therapeutically, but also have an extra benefit of looking great and being able to prep for bodybuilding if I want to. So first prep was great. It was 8 months long, not quite as long as this one. I think I started in, if I recall, February, and it went to about October. So yeah, that 8 or 9 month mark. But made mistakes, learned a lot. Um, had the typical like little bit of a splurge off the diet that I've seen uh, quite common in people who are doing it for the first time, or even in pro bodybuilders. I've seen it where they just crack under the pressure and then they kind of go off diet. So I had a couple of those. or maybe only one of those actually. Stressed out about it, got back on plan and went about the plan and executed properly. So yeah, a lot of learning. It was a big learning curve, but overall, I was really happy with it. And this prep is just going swimmingly compared to the first one. So
Was there anything about that first prep that really surprised you?
yes, I've never seen myself that lean. So it was actually crazy to see what's achievable through a caloric deficit and steps. People wouldn't even believe that I told them I was doing 30 minutes of cardio max for the entire week on my first prep as a natural bodybuilder. And then I went and got a DEXA scan and I was at 6.3% body fat when I stepped on stage. They would be like, what? You didn't do any cardio on your prep? Like, yeah, it's the magic of a caloric deficit and just walking and being active.
How
So
high
I
did
was
your
shocked.
how high did your step count end up getting to?
I stuck at about, with my coach and I, we stuck at about 10K a day.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's a pretty normal, nothing excessive or anything like that, right? So about 10 to 12,000 a day.
Wow. Wow. That's something, and you got really, really lean too. Like you were peeled. That
Thank you.
that's awesome. That's something that I want to adopt a little bit better for my own prep the next time around.
Yeah,
My step count for the last several months got super, super high, and I think that
really.
was something that in the end, I think it was a bit excessive. I didn't do any cardio either, but
Okay,
my step
cool.
count I think it got a little too high. Like, it got higher than what, my coach, Jeff, was suggesting to
Right,
do. I was just like, "I gotta do more," and that was a mistake, I think, in
right,
retrospect.
right.
But it's cool to know that you kept right around 10K steps, and just to know how peeled you ended up becoming from that is awesome.
Yeah,
Did
so I
you,
think that was the biggest shock to me. I was like, "Whoa,
did
this is
the,
crazy."
I know you mentioned you had a binge in the in the mix, which I think is pretty common with a lot of bodybuilders. I know
Yeah.
that Jeff Alberts has been open about having done that himself.
Oh,
He's
really?
mentioned that before. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a
So I think
common
it's a
thing. Like
common
we're
thing for
human, right?
athletes.
You know?
Yeah. Did the hunger that came from prep, from dieting, was that a surprise to you? Were you prepared for it? Did anyone, like, get you ready for it?
No, that's something I wasn't ready for. My coach, one thing I remember him telling me is like, you're gonna be hungry. Like, get used to it. Like, get comfortable with being hungry. So that's something that always stuck with me. But no, before that, had no idea. Like I said, I put myself in a caloric deficit. I've done build and cut phases plenty of times in my own life before having a coach when I got more of an understanding. So I knew what a caloric deficit was. I knew what a surplus was. I knew how to build and cut. And I would lose myself, between 10 and 20 pounds, but nothing like this. Like my first prep was 193 to 160 on stage, so about 33 pounds. And no, I wasn't ready for the hunger.
I feel like it's one of those things where someone tells you about it, they're like, "Hey," it's like, it was, you were working with Brad Loomis, right?
Yeah, I still am. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, Brad probably was like, "Hey, get ready, you're gonna be hungry," but it's the kind of thing where it's like someone tells you, but you don't know until you've experienced it, and then you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's what he meant." You
Yeah.
can't
You
you
never
can't
know.
yeah,
Exactly what
that's
you're saying. Yeah, you don't know until you experience it. And I don't even actually know if he prefaced me enough to be like to be ready for like, listen, you're gonna be hungry. It's like it was kind of
yeah,
like smack me in the face, and then he was like, yeah, you gotta get used to being hungry. And I was like, oh, all right.
yeah.
So
Surprise.
yeah,
Did
so it
you
was a rude
find
awakening. Sorry.
did you, how did you find training as you were dieting? What did that ever become a struggle? Did you enjoy the training through it, or did it eventually start to, like, weigh down on you? Did you notice any differences to your strength levels? What was that like throughout the prep?
Yeah, so great point. For the most part, it was good. I was actually surprised with how much strength I was retaining as I was losing uh, body weight, which I was happy with. I think naturally, maybe genetically, I've always been somewhat on the stronger end a little bit. Don't know where that comes from. But I was holding a lot of strength, which was good. So my lifts weren't really decreasing up until about the, I want to say like 12-week mark is when I started to really notice the training sort of digressing, strength digressing, and I was really like dragging my feet, like, whoa, this is tough. But even it's weird because as much as I remember that, I remember getting to peak week and being like, I don't feel that bad for how lean I like. I don't feel like some of these people say like, oh, I feel like death. I had waves for sure where it was a struggle to go up the stairs in the house. I had those moments, but overall, I would say better moments than not. So yeah, strength took a hit, but like I said, very late in the prep. And then overall, I felt good for the most part. I had my weeks, I had my days where it was really a struggle, but maybe it was the excitement of getting close to the show that kind of picked up. Because a week out, I felt pretty good actually.
What was it, do you think, during, and I know you mentioned like there was waves, there was those tough weeks. During those tough weeks, what do you think really kept you going, kept you driven? Was it the prospect, like you had your eye on the prize? It was like the motivation that came with like the eventually you were going to get on the stage, or was there anything else?
Yeah, no, it was the goal. I'm the type of person when I get my mind set on something, I have to see it through. I have to go for it. So and I knew that it wasn't gonna be easy, and everybody has these days, and they're just part of the process. So I just buckled up and I took them as they came, and then yeah, had some better days too, which was a nice refreshing break. But overall, just dealt with them best I could, kept off my feet. Aside from the steps, just a lot of resting and relaxing, naps, stuff like that.
What were how many shows did you do for that season?
That season was only two, so I did Calgary. It was actually only meant to be one. It was meant to be the Calgary show, so the hometown show. Um, First bodybuilding show, do it for the hometown, have the support system come out and see it. Super cool. And then Brad was actually the one who was like, I think you should go to world championships and compete. So then we did the second world championship show in Seattle, and I saw you there, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we both did that show, and that was great. And to be honest, I'm glad in hindsight that I did that, because you put so much time and effort into getting there, and then you have your maybe 1 hour on stage. It's a lot of time invested for the return, right?
If that.
Yeah,
I found that in Calgary, I think we were both on stage. We were both middleweights in Calgary, right?
yeah, we were, yeah.
Of that whole season, because you and I had we both were competing that year. Of all the shows that I did that year, that was the longest that I was on stage, was
Yeah.
that middleweight group. And it was huge
Oh, in
too. There was a
Calgary, yeah.
huge lineup. How many people do you think were on stage? There's like 12 to 14 people all crammed on stage. It was
Yeah,
nuts.
I remember it being like a packed stage. Like we had to curl around at the end. So yeah, 12 or 14 upwards competitors. It was a lot. And how many shows did you do that season?
I did I did 4.
Oh wow.
And that was my 4th prep.
Whoa.
But that was the first prep that I did multiple shows. So all of the preps I did prior to that were what you had planned. It was like prep, then
One
just
and
do one
done?
show,
Oh
one and
wow.
done. All of the other preps were that way.
Yeah.
But that one was the first one that I did a multitude of different shows, it was a good experience. I'm glad I did it too. But I definitely have a memory of being on stage at that show and just being on, like being with the middleweights on stage for like forever. I was so tired, like holding the poses,
Yeah, I
but
didn't know any
it's
better, so I was like, "Oh, this is what it's like. All right, let's go." But yeah, we were up there for a long time. I do remember that.
how did you feel after that? Those both shows. So how did you feel? And you can go through each of them. what it felt like for the first show and then Worlds afterwards.
So Calgary definitely felt better to me. It felt awesome. Hometown show, first show ever. Had my entire support system out, and I brought like everybody, like my friends, my family. I think I had 30 people show up who bought tickets. So that in itself was like, if you have a support system like that, you're gonna feel good no matter what you place. And luckily, I ended up showing up and placing well, which everyone got to see, which I was super happy about. But that show was just very unique to me in the sense that it was a really good experience. Had everybody there to just be excited with me and share in the experience with me as the first time ever. So that one was really awesome. Not taking anything away from Worlds, that was also a really cool experience. I loved going to Seattle and competing there. Very cool. Um, didn't do as well as I wanted to do at that show, obviously. So a little bit of that because I'm pretty critical of myself, as are most people in bodybuilding, I'm sure. So I didn't place as well at Worlds. So it was a little bit of a not as exciting show. I didn't have any support system aside from my fiance there with me, because it was a far journey, and it was sort of a last minute decision too. Actually, I should say Brad was there, so that was awesome. That was probably the coolest part, was having my coach there in person. Because I don't know if the viewers know, but he lives in the States and I live in Canada. So having him there and present was the coolest part. Having him hands on, helping me and guiding me, that was super cool. Um, they were both unique in their own ways. I really enjoyed the Calgary show because of friends and family in the local town, and first time show. But Worlds was an awesome experience as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Did you after? So it sounds like Calgary was really, really special, having so many people there supporting you, and you did really well. I remember you looked killer too. I was
Thank
there,
you.
so I saw.
Likewise,
And
bro. We were next to each other. We were looking
yeah.
great. You were looking good up there. That was
Thanks,
good.
dude. Um, so that sounded like it was super, super special. And then, so you did Worlds, and you mentioned you didn't place as well as you had hoped for. When you
Mm.
finished that, were you like kind of bitter about it, or were you like, I want to get right back out, I want to prep again and I want to do better? Like, were you driven, or did that come a little bit slower? You needed to recover a bit before you could like think about the prospect of competing again?
Yeah, so a bit of both, I would say. I was like, obviously, like I said, pretty critical of myself. I was a little bit disappointed with my placing, but it just motivated me further. Like, I can do better. I placed here. I have spots to move up. There's spots ahead of me, so I can move up, and you best believe that I damn will. So it lit a fire, but it was also a huge relief because it was the end of my season. I was like, holy man, like I did it. It's so nice to have the weight. I would say like one of the coolest experiences is when you finish prep. You did it all. You did everything. You're happy with it overall. Nothing traumatic or silly happened. It was a great experience, and then you just have that sort of weight lifted off your shoulders, like, whew, the season is done, and now I get to relax. Like I remember going back to my hotel room that day of competing at Worlds and just absolutely relaxing, and I passed out for like 6 hours. It was such a relief, man. I was like,
Just
whoa.
completely comatose.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
there's no feeling like it.
Yeah,
The day after, like there's so many awesome things about prep and competing in general, but it's the rewarding feeling that comes from, you finish your last show, and like you noted, the weight that's off of your shoulders, and
yeah,
it's just like, I'm the same. I'm felt the same way. That's one of the things that I like the most about it. I love
for sure.
competing, and I'm really competitive too. And I love the chase, and I love the drive of the process.
Yeah,
And it's just nice that even after you get through the process, that there is that really nice moment. It doesn't last for that long. I don't know about you, but that's definitely how it's been for me. It doesn't
yeah. No,
last that
you're
long,
right,
but it's really nice that, you get that kind of euphoric feeling
for
after
sure.
that last competition.
And I think that's part of the reason that it's so addicting for me personally is like the highs and lows, the emotional roller coaster that you endure from start of prep to end of prep, especially towards the end when you're getting on stage, you're getting off stage, you're having that feed up in calories which you're not used to, you're filling out, and then you're prepping down to the next show, and then you're on peak week again, and then you're on stage again, and then you're routine, and then it's just like it's an emotional roller coaster in the best way possible. And then
Yeah.
finishing the season is just like that relief. And like you said, I don't think unless you've stepped on a stage, you'll have that feeling, but it is one of the best feelings I've ever experienced.
Yeah. It's like so much delayed gratification, like
Yes.
such a long journey. It's tough. We love it. We
Yeah.
definitely love it, but it's just so rewarding to get to the end of a really, really long journey and to like feel good about it and then, get
Yeah.
that sense of fulfillment afterwards.
Exactly. And I don't think I've had, you know, goals that I've seen through for that extended period of time. So I think that plays a huge factor too, is just like you said, the delayed gratification, and that amount of time invested, and then just going through it is awesome.
How was your how was your improvement season after the show ended?
So that was a little interesting because the original plan was to get not take so I ended up taking 2024 off of prep. So I was still building towards competing the next year, but originally the plan was to compete in 2024 as well. So it was supposed to be compete in 2023, recovery diet out to a good weight, maintain that, make a little bit of improvements in the training and stuff like that, and then diet back down into the 2024 season. And I think I told my coach I wanted to compete in spring of that season as opposed to fall. So the original plan was to do a spring show in 2024. And same thing with prep. Had a couple mistakes and learning coming out of the first prep. So I recovery dieted, which was great. And then I just blew through that. And I
So
just
the
cruised.
recovery diet, like, was it a little bit longer? Was it more of a recovery diet than planned? Is that what
Yeah,
we're talking here? Yeah,
the
yeah.
recovery diet turned into a little bit of a rebound at the end. So
Yeah. You know what's funny is after every one of my seasons, I've been like, "Okay, this time I'm gonna keep it together. It's
and that
gonna
was the
be as
plan.
planned." And I've yet to not go past myself, um,
Yeah.
gaining my planned amount of weight, but
Yeah.
anyways, I hear ya. I've been there
Yeah,
every time.
you know the struggle. And it's not as easy as it seems, right? You would think, okay, I get to, eat in a surplus and recovery out, but like it's very hard to then stay and maintain at that weight that you want to, especially the first time. Like I completely, like I said, I blew through the goalpost and just kept going. So I was like, you know what, coach, maybe we reevaluate, and I do a build and take the season off and come back, which to be honest, I was fine with. Like, as much as I wanted to get back at it and get back on stage, I was fine to make better improvements over the longer term. And we talked about this. Like, I don't mind putting in the time. So I was happy to put in another year, take the season off, and maybe make some significant changes, which I'm actually happy that I did, because I was just comparing my 14 weeks out photo last prep to this prep, and holy man, I was shocked myself. I was like, am I like, is this the same? Are these really both 14 weeks out? I was shocked. Like this prep, it's significantly different, and that just comes with the experience.
So the extended recovery diet was worth it because you ended up building more muscle. You're gonna have an improved physique for
It
this prep
was.
now.
It was totally worth it. I took the time off. I made significant gains, and we talked about only the muscle. I probably only put on maybe a muscle or sorry, a pound of muscle, but in the right places that I needed to. So my arms, significant improvements from 2023 to now, 2025. And then I made some gains in my calves too, which is very rare for me because my calves are kind of a lackluster spot. So I was actually pretty impressed with that. So coach put together a great build in the off season, put together great training for me, and I just went at it hard. And yeah, I've made some great changes. And not only that, but this prep this time around, I don't know if it was the same with you, but obviously the experience you gain going through that first time prep to the second time, like it's a world of difference for me. Like I've made none of the mistakes that I made the first time. I'm ahead of schedule on this prep. We actually had to do a diet break because I was dropping weight so fast. I know how to manage my stress, which was a huge factor in the first prep. I had no clue what to do. So stress and cortisol were very high in the first prep because I was worried about every little mistake. I wanted to be perfect, which ended up leading to further mistakes and stressing about them. Which stress is probably worse than the mistake itself. So this prep has been a world of difference. So much calmer, managing stress, sleep, recovery, training, like everything is better this time around.
Yeah. It's like each time you do a new prep, it's almost like it's easier because you're more prepared. It's like the first time for
Yeah,
you probably did the prep, and we kind of talked about this, but like the hunger was a bit of a surprise, like what it
yeah,
feels like to get that lean, and maybe how that might have impacted like the way that you felt from a mental and emotional standpoint. That's for me was like one of the biggest surprises was from my first prep was like not just the hunger, but also like how it impacted how I felt, like mood,
for sure.
mentally, emotionally. That was a big thing too. And like you mentioned, stress being a big thing. Um,
Yeah,
I think it's like if you know what it's going to feel like ahead of time, it's like there's no surprises around the corner.
yeah,
You know what the hunger is gonna you have an idea of what the hunger will feel like and how it'll impact you from a mental emotional standpoint. And so it's less stressful just because and you can prepare for it
exactly.
a little bit better. Yeah,
Yeah, I know the ropes this time around, and there's no real surprises and no things to stress me out. Like you said, the hunger, it hasn't even affected me this prep. Like I know what I'm in for. I'm used to it. Things like posing in the first prep. So I'm a very OCD person. You could say like borderline perfectionist. So if my fiance was here, she would tell you straight up that she wanted to punch me like multiple times because of how much like stress I would get over small posing problems. Like that in the grand scheme of things never even came to light. So I was just like sabotaging myself, stressing over these small things. But these are like incredible things that from first prep to second prep that I've learned that posing doesn't even stress me out this prep at all.
yeah. The posing has probably come a lot faster this time around too, right? It's like you had to learn it from scratch
Yeah,
the first time around. Now it's like there's muscle memory with remembering the skill that goes into like getting into front lat spread and side tricep, and it's still all there,
100%.
right?
100%. That was a huge thing because yeah, first time like I said, jumping in the deep end, learning posing, I didn't know what I was doing. And I have some of the goofiest photos of me on my camera roll, like trying to hit a side symmetry and looking like a complete clown. And this time
I've
around,
been
I
there.
know what to expect. So I just get in the pose and I take the photo and I do my check-in and it's like no problems. Whereas like the first prep, I was like, let me see the photo. Oh, this is this and this and this and this and this. And it's just like, it wasn't even worth it.
Did
So,
you learn it from scratch yourself, or is that part of Brad's coaching? Does Brad teach you and help you with the posing?
so he was definitely helping me with the posing the first time around. He would do on some of my check-ins, he would actually go through the motions in the check-in video, which was great and helpful to see him doing it. I also attended sessions with him virtually. So he would go over my posing with me um, over the computer, which was tremendously helpful. And I think it's needed for anybody stepping on stage for the first time, because you really don't know what you're doing unless you've been sort of practicing in the shadows for a while, which some people do because they're super passionate. They'll just watch videos and then practice all day. I wasn't one of those people, so it was a big learning curve, but he helped me a lot. I did put my time into watching videos and applying myself, and it all came together at the end, which was great. But um, just too much concern, I guess, in my own personality the first time to now this time is I was just. You ever heard Tony Robbins say, "Don't major in minor things"?
Oh yeah.
And that's what I was
Don't
doing.
major in the minors.
Yeah, that's what I was doing the first prep. So I've learned a tremendous amount to this prep, and like I said, I would say significantly better, like 100% better than the first prep in terms of everything. So
Crazy. Okay,
yeah.
so you started this prep November. It's May now, so you've been prepping for about 6 months. Did you do like a pre-prep positioning kind of a diet, or has it been straight dieting since November? Did you take like a maintenance period? I think you said you did a diet break.
Yeah, so
What is up?
you could technically say that starting November, that was our sort of prep positioning. So you could call the first few months prep positioning. So it wasn't, I guess it still was prep, but
It's still
more or
prep.
less prep positioning. Yeah, still on a caloric deficit, still prepping for the show.
Still prepping.
So prep positioning November until about last month, start of April. And then I
Okay.
had a diet break, which was more or less a refeed break. I was still in a caloric deficit. Like I've been in a deficit since I started. So while it was a higher deficit, or sorry, I would say a lower deficit, got more calories. It was a bit of a diet break, which was awesome. I didn't get that my first prep, so that was really cool. Body responded extremely well to that because food went up, stress levels went down. I was still in a deficit, and I was losing weight like crazy throughout the whole thing, which was really cool to see. And then yeah, strict, I guess, full prep now since then. But
And what's your goal? Are you going to aim to, are you still aiming to get down to like the same kind of body weight target? It was like low 160s, or are you
yes,
estimating you'll be like a little bit higher?
I would assume this time around after the year off, I would step on maybe that pound or two higher, but we'll totally see. I could also come in more conditioned and step on at the same weight, which would be cool because, I'm sure prep to prep, you're able to make improvements not only on your mass but on your conditioning as well.
Yeah,
So
for
I
sure.
very well could step on at the same weight, which was about 160, just be more conditioned and appear larger because I have that extra pound of muscle as opposed to maybe that water weight or that fat that it was previously. But yeah, still aiming for the low 160s. Whatever it lands at when we get there is what I'll step on as long as we're happy with the conditioning.
What do you feel? I know that for your first prep, I asked you what was really driving you, and it was like having the light at the other end of the tunnel, like getting on stage, like you're really, really goal oriented. Is it kind of the
Mhm.
same deal this time around? Second prep, you're really, really motivated and driven to do well at the competitions that you have planned?
Yes. So this time it's a combination of that and the love and addiction for the sport from experiencing it the first time. So I'm like, holy man, that was so awesome. Like we talked about that roller coaster of emotions. Can't wait to experience that again. But also I know what I'm capable of now, and I'm coming like this year with a vengeance. So like I'm going for the pro card, and that's the plan, and that's what I have in my mind. So
I was going to ask you what the goals are for this season. So
that's the big
that's the
goal.
big one, eh?
Yeah, pro card
Love
is
it.
in the sights, and not only that, but a lot of people might not know that when we competed back in 2023, WMBF didn't have a classic division, and when
That's right.
I originally wanted to compete for the first time as my bodybuilder kid self or whatever, I was
It
always
was
viewing classic because I watched classic, I watched C-Bum, I watched the classic guys since its inception. So I came into the space thinking I'm going to compete in Classic, only to realize that WMBF didn't have Classic, which was fine because as naturals, open bodybuilding is more of a class. It's not like the mass monsters that's at the Olympia, right? As naturals, it's more of a a better looking classic style with all the bodybuilding mandatories. So I'm very excited this year that I can cross over for the first time into both divisions. And yeah, a pro card in each would be the ultimate pinnacle goal. That would be incredible. But the more achievable goal is one pro card, preferably in classic. That's what I'm gunning for.
That's awesome. How many shows do you have planned this season?
So I have 4 actually.
It's a big one,
So
big season.
it's going to be Ontario, Saskatchewan, Calgary, and then most likely California Worlds.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And then I was considering a CPA show in there, a natural one. But I'm still on the fence about that.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't get a pro card with the CPA show, right?
No,
Like they're
that's
different.
a pro qualifier.
They have right.
Completely,
They've got their own system.
Yeah, I would have to place. I think I would have to win the overall, and then that's a pro qualifier, and then you go to a pro show. So that would more or less be for fun.
Yeah, that's sweet. That sounds awesome. That's a big one too. You're going to be all over the place. Ontario, Saskatchewan. So those 2 provinces.
Mm-hmm.
You said Calgary, right?
Calgary, yeah.
Calgary,
again.
that's home show, and then
Yep.
California. So you're going like back and forth all over the place. That's cool.
East Coast, West Coast, East Coast, West Coast.
Well, that's awesome that it's ending. It's cool that they're doing Worlds in California. It's just like an awesome place to like end a season at. It's California, and it'll be in November, right?
It'll be in November, yeah. I think I saw the date. It was like, I think if I'm not mistaken, early November. But it worked out really well for me that I took the 2024 season off, because I think Worlds bounces back and forth from East Coast shows to West Coast shows. So I missed the Boston 2024, which was East Coast, and now they came back West. And when I originally competed in 2023 with you, that was in Seattle, so also West. So really close to home, which is awesome for me. Less traveling. But yeah, the furthest show this year will be Toronto on the East Coast.
Sweet. Yeah. That's awesome. It's going to be an awesome season. I think you're
Looking
going to crush
forward
it.
to it.
I thought you looked killer. You looked killer in 2023. So I think you're going to crush it this time around.
Yeah, I'm excited. Big things coming. I think I made some significant improvements. Like I said, this prep is dramatically better in every aspect. And then not only that, but the posing has come a long way. So
yeah, everything, whole package is going to be
whole package. So looking forward to it. Very excited.
Sweet, man. Well, I'm really excited to see how it goes. I already know you're going to crush it. You're going to look fantastic. I think I saw you you posted something on your Instagram story like within the last few days. I remember seeing it, and you looked already like really lean and tight and huge too, like really
Thanks.
Like you got a lot of muscle. So like you're going to be a monster when you're on stage. It's going to be awesome.
I appreciate that.
I'm going to be keeping an eye out. But anyways, yeah, thanks for the conversation, Tyler.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was an awesome experience.